The Scarlet Letter is made possible by grants from the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Exxon Corporation, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, and the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations.
Speak, woman. Speak and give your child a father.
Who is that man? I hate him, Esther.
Come.
I thought joy was dead in me. Esther, this is already the better life.
People of New England, behold me here, the one sinner of the world.
And now, part one of The Scarlet Letter.
One idle and rainy day, in an unfinished room in the Salem Custom House, I, Nathaniel Hawthorne, had the fortune to make a discovery of some little interest. I chanced upon a mysterious package, an official record of some period long past. It might be that a treasure would here be brought to light. The object that most drew my attention was a certain affair of fine red cloth, upon which was wrought with wonderful skill of needlework the semblance of the letter A. It seemed to me...
You may smile, but you must not doubt my word.
that I experienced a sensation not altogether physical, yet almost so, as of burning heat, as if the letter were not of red cloth, but red-hot iron.
Here is sketched the story of Hester Prynne, who lived in Massachusetts 200 years ago. You must not think that in dressing up the tale of Hester Prynne and imagining the motives and modes of passion that influence the characters that figure in it, I've confined myself to what is written here. On the contrary, I have allowed myself nearly, or altogether, as much license as if the facts were entirely of my invention. What I contend for is the authenticity of the outline.
The founders of a new colony, whatever utopia of human virtue and happiness they might originally project, have invariably recognized it among their earliest practical necessities to allot a portion of the virgin soil as a cemetery and another portion as a place of punishment.
They should put the brand of a hot iron on Hester Prynne's forehead.
Said she'll stand till noonday and
the
no
magistrates
more.
are too merciful.
Aye, and to their shame.
We women should have the handling of this Hester Prynne.
Make way! Make up a path!
Out!
Make way!
She has skill with her needle. That's certain. If ever a woman contrive such a way of showing it.
What the magistrates meant for a punishment, she has made a pride.
For shame, woman, for shame. Look at her.
Not a stitch in that embroidered letter, but she has felt it in her heart.
Open, people of the Massachusetts. Open in the king's name. A blessing on the righteous colony of the Massachusetts, where iniquity is dragged from the dark into the light. Come along, Madam Hester, and show your scarlet letter in the marketplace.
Madam Hester would not be so proud if we stripped a rich gown off her dainty shoulders.
Little need she care what they put upon her gown. She may cover it up.
Cover it as she will, the pang of it will be always in her heart.
It was no great distance in those days from the prison door to the scaffold. Measured by the prisoner's experience, however, it might be reckoned a journey of some length. She perchance underwent an agony from every footstep of those that thronged to see her, as if her heart had been flung into the street for them all to spurn and trample upon.
Up there, woman.
People of Boston, free men of the great colony of the Massachusetts, behold this sinner, but pity her not. See how sin defaces the beautiful framework of God. See how it mars that orderly magnificence the Lord first planted in all things. See how sin makes a separation between the sinner and his God. The sin of one imperils all. Let the Scarlet Letter be a warning against all sin and transgression. Be reminded that sin will be discovered daily, more and more. Let her stand there in her shame and her shamelessness, and as you gaze upon her face, and on the Scarlet Letter on her breast, and on the babe held in her arms, instruct yourselves from what you see. We live The forest on our threshold, in a wilderness filled with treachery, with savages and howling beasts.
A wilderness speaks a desolate, solitary, forlorn place. And so hath New England proved unto us. It speaks a land of killing frost and pathless woods, where men are in danger to be lost. And so hath New England proved unto us.
Good morning, sir.
And is not this wilderness...
Who is that?
Hester Prynne.
Prynne. Have I the name right?
Aye.
And why is she on the scaffold?
If you were from Boston, you'd have heard of Mistress Hester. She's raised a great scandal here.
And what was her offense?
She holds it in her arms.
And is it not into this wilderness that the soul must come? And is it not through this wilderness that the soul must
where is her
pass
husband?
Before it can
He sent his
possess
wife
heaven
before
and
him.
name?
He stayed in England to look after his affairs.
And followed hence?
In the 2 years the woman's dwelt in Boston, no tidings have come of the learned Master Prynne. And his young wife, look you, being left to her own
I do conceive you, master. So learned a man as he should have learned this much from his books.
Another England, a new England, here at
And who may be the father of the babe?
Daniel, who's to read that riddle, has not yet come.
She will not reveal his name.
The magistrates have pled with her in vain. She will not speak.
Here where he has opened the gates of his kingdom.
Then the guilty one might
Here,
stand
where
among
we
us,
most
forgetting that God
ecstatically
sees him,
pray.
though he be unknown to man.
Indeed.
Will her punishment be this and nothing more?
The woman is youthful and fair.
Aye.
And was strongly tempted to her fall. Her husband's most likely at the bottom of the sea, and taken all to all, they've not put the extremity of the law against her.
And what may that be?
If ordered, death.
God's commandments are the fortress within whose walls we dwell. A breach in those commandments
But in their great mercy and tenderness of heart, the magistrates have doomed Mistress Hester to stand only a space of 3 hours on the platform of the pillory, and then and thereafter, for the remainder of her natural life, to wear a mark of shame upon her bosom.
A wise sentence. Thus she will be a living sermon against sin.
fellow exiles.
But where is he, the partner in her iniquity? Should he not stand on the scaffold by her side?
Justice will dwell in the wilderness.
But he will be known. He will be.
Hester Prynne. Hearken unto me, Hester Prynne. I have striven to persuade this godly youth, under whose preaching of the word you have been privileged to sit, that he should deal with you, here in the face of heaven and in the hearing of all the people, as touching the vileness and blackness of your sin. Knowing your natural temper better than I, he might the better judge how to prevail over your hardness and obstinacy, that you should no longer hide the name of him that tempted you to this grievous fall. But with a young man's over-softness, he feels it were wronging the very nature of woman to force her to lay bare her heart's secret in such broad daylight and in the presence of so great a multitude. Truly, as I have sought to convince him, the shame lay in the commission of the sin, not in the showing of it. And how say you to it once again, Brother Dimmesdale? Must it be thou or I that shall deal with this poor sinner's soul?
Good Master Dimmesdale, the responsibility for this poor woman's soul lies greatly with you. Exhort her to repentance, and in consequence and proof thereof, to confession.
Speak to the woman, my brother. It is of moment to her soul, and therefore momentous to thine own, in whose charge hers is. Exhort her to confess the truth.
Hester Prynne, you hear what this good man says, and you see the accountability under which I labor. If you feel it to be for your soul's peace, and that your earthly punishment will thereby be made more effectual to your salvation, I charge you to speak out the name of your fellow sinner, fellow sufferer. Be not silent out of any mistaken tenderness or pity for him. For believe me, Hester, though he were to step down from a high place and stand there beside thee on thy pedestal of shame, yet better were it so than to hide a guilty heart through life. What can your silence do for him, except to tempt him? Yea, compel him, as it were, to add hypocrisy to sin. Heaven hath granted you an open ignominy, that you may work out an open triumph over the evil within you and the sorrow without. Take heed how you deny to him, who perchance has not the courage to grasp it for himself, the bitter but wholesome cup that is now presented to your lips.
Woman, transgress not beyond the limits of heaven's mercy. Speak out the name. That and thy repentance may avail to take the scarlet letter off thy breast.
Never. It's too deeply branded, you cannot take it off. Would that I might endure his agony as well as mine.
Speak, woman. Speak and give your child a father.
I will not speak. My child must seek a heavenly father. She will never know an earthly one.
She will not speak. No wonder strength and generosity of a woman's heart. She will not speak.
People of Boston, let the scarlet letter burning upon Hester Prynne forever burn before our eyes. God's word and God's law are our only salvation in the wilderness in which we dwell.
So forcibly did the Reverend Mr. Wilson dwell upon the scarlet letter stitched by Hester Prynne that it assumed new terrors in the imagination of the people. She, meanwhile, kept her place upon the pedestal of shame, having borne that day all that nature could endure.
Come down. It's time to go back.
And so, Hester Prynne was led back to prison and vanished from the public gaze. It was whispered by those who peered after her that the scarlet letter threw a lurid gleam along the passageway.
I pray you, sir, I'd have a word with your prisoner.
What? Hester Prynne?
Aye.
She'll speak to no one.
What do you mean?
And no one should speak to her. She's possessed. She and the child of sin beside her. I'm off to fetch a physician for her now.
Wait. We are well met, for I am the man you seek.
You, sir? A physician?
Well skilled in all the Christian modes of physic, familiar, too, with what the savage people teach.
Well, come with me, then. I was afraid she might hurt herself or hurt the babe, and now she's worse. I've threatened her, but it does no good.
And the child?
She's drunk the mother's anguish with her milk.
You spoke the truth, sir. You cross the threshold and the cure's begun.
Leave me with my patient. I promise you, Mistress Prynne will hereafter be more amenable to your authority.
I do believe you, sir.
The savages have taught me. They know the use of herbs and roots and have made a metaphysician of me. Here. The child is yours. She's none of mine.
Would you avenge yourself on an infant babe?
The medicine knows not the legitimate from the bastard. For the child mine, yea, mine own as well as yours, I could do no better for it. Give it to her.
No.
Release the child. Now I'll tend to you.
Whence came you?
I was shipwrecked and have long dwelt among the heathen. They gave me a guide who brought me here. You may thank me now for the wilderness life that I've led. Drink this. It may be less soothing than a sinless conscience that I cannot give you, but it will calm the swirl and heaving of your passion. The child has calmed. Would I spare the branch and lop the tree?
I have thought of death. I have wished for it. Would have prayed for it were I fit to pray at all. And yet if death be in this vial, I bid you think again before you tell me drink. You see, it is even now at my lips.
Drink, Hester. If I sought vengeance against you, what better than to let you live? So that you may carry that burning shame forever on your bosom. Live and bear your doom in the eyes of men and women In the eyes of that child. In the eyes of him whom you did call husband. That you may live, take of this draught. Men call me wise. If sages were ever wise on their own behalf, I might have foreseen all of this.
In truth?
I might have known that as I stepped out of that vast and dismal forest and into this settlement of Christian men, the very first object to meet my eyes would be thyself, Hester Prynne, standing up a statue of ignominy before the people. Nay, from that first moment when we walked down the church steps together, a married pair, I might have beheld the balefire of that Scarlet Letter blazing in our path.
Why did you not then?
It was my folly. A man of thought, already in decay, having given over my best years to feed the hungry dream of knowledge, what had I to do with youth and beauty such as yours? Misshapen as I was from my birth hour, how could I delude myself with the idea that intellectual gifts could veil physical deformity in a young girl's fantasy?
You know I was frank with you. I felt no love nor feigned any.
It was my folly, I have said it. The world was so cheerless. My heart was a habitation without a household fire. I longed to kindle one. It seemed not so wild a dream, old as I was, somber as I was, and misshapen as I was, that simple bliss might yet be mine. And so, Hester, I drew you into my heart, into its innermost chamber, and sought to warm you with the warmth which your presence made there.
I have greatly wronged you.
We have wronged each other. Mine was the first wrong, when I betrayed thy budding youth into a false and unnatural relation with my decay. I seek no vengeance, plot no evil against you, Hester. Between you and me, the scale hangs fairly balanced. But Hester, the man lives who has wronged us both. Who is he?
That you shall never know.
Never know. Never know? Oh, Hester. Believe me, Hester. Few things are hidden from the man who earnestly and unreservedly devotes himself to the solution of a mystery. You may cover up your secret from the prying multitudes. You may conceal it even from the ministers and magistrates, as you did this afternoon. But, Hester, I come to this inquest with other senses than they possess. I shall seek out this man as I have sought truth in books and gold in alchemy. There will be a sympathy that will make me conscious of him. I shall see him tremble. I shall feel myself shudder suddenly and unawares. Sooner or later, he must needs be mine. He wears no letter of infamy wrought into his garment, but I shall read it on his heart. Yet fear not for him. Think not that I shall interfere with heaven's own method of retribution, nor to my own loss betray him to the grip of human law. Neither will I conspire aught against his life, nor against his fame. If, as I judge, he be a man of fair repute. Now, let him live. Let him wrap himself in outward honor, if he may. Nonetheless, he shall be mine.
Your acts are like mercy, but your words interpret you as a terror.
One thing, you that were my wife, I would enjoin upon you. You have kept the secret of your paramour. Keep likewise mine. There are none in this land that know me. Breathe not to any human soul that you did ever call me husband. Here, on this wild outskirt of the earth, I find a woman, a man, and a child, amongst whom and myself exist the closest ligaments. Whether it be right or wrong, you and yours, Hester Prynne, belong to me. My home is where you are, and where he is. Betray me not.
Why do you desire it? Why do you not announce yourself openly and cast me off at once?
It may be that I do not wish to encounter the dishonor that besmirches the husband of a faithless woman. It may be for other reasons. Enough. It is my purpose to live and die unknown. Let therefore your husband be as one already dead, and of whom no tidings shall ever be known. Recognize me not by word, by sign, or by look. Should you fail me in this, Hester, beware. His fame, his position, his very life will be in my hands. Beware.
I will keep your secret, as I have his.
Swear it.
I swear.
Now, I will leave you alone, Hester Prynne. Alone with your infant and the Scarlet Letter. How is it, Hester? Does the sentence bind you to wear the token in your sleep? Are you not afraid of nightmares and hideous dreams?
Why do you smile so at me? Are you like the man in black in the forest? Have you enticed me into a bond that will prove the ruin of my soul?
Not your soul. Not yours.
You are your mother's only treasure, purchased dearly, so dearly. Purchased with all that I possessed. Twere fitting that I called you Pearl.
Your sentence is spent, mistress. You're free to go. Collect your belongings. You've no further business here.
Get up, you damn pig, you help!
Now began the daily custom, and she must either sustain and carry it forward or sink beneath it. She could no longer borrow from the future to help her through the present grief. Tomorrow would bring its own trial with it. So would the next day, and so would the next, each its own trial, and yet the very same. The accumulating days and added years would pile up their misery upon the heap of shame. Throughout them all, she would become the general symbol at which the preacher and moralist might point, and in which they might vivify and embody their images of woman's frailty and sinful passion. And over her grave, the infamy that she must carry thither would be her only monument.
Your worship, I would stay in Boston.
What? You choose to remain here, then?
Given your worship's leave and that of the other magistrates who yet keep watch upon me.
Have you means to sustain yourself?
A slender sum. It is my purpose to earn my livelihood through needlework.
Where will you live? We would not banish you, but there are few who would take you in.
Your worship, on the outskirts of town stands a cottage. It was built by one who early settled on the shore and then abandoned.
You are kept by no restriction to this settlement.
Am I given leave? Here is the scene of my guilt. Here should be the scene of my earthly punishment.
You may live in the cottage, Hester Prynne. I'll inform the other magistrates.
I thank you, sir.
Although she hid the secret from herself, it might be that another feeling kept her within the scene and pathway that had been so fatal. Here dwelt, here trod the feet of one with whom she deemed herself connected in a union that, unrecognized on earth, would bring them together before the bar of final judgment and make that their marriage altar. She barely looked the idea in the face and hastened to bar it in its dungeon.
I can't find my other needle. Can't find my needle. Hey. It just sticked.
Father in heaven, thou art still my Father. What is this being that I have brought into the world?
Good morning, Mr.
Hester Prynne. Dost walk with pride amongst us?
Sir, I only walk,
Thy head's held high.
that I may see my path.
Humble thyself, mistress. Hast thou forgot the letter at thy breast? Hast any here forgot the import of that scarlet letter, eh? Or are there strangers to our town who've not been told the tale of Hester Prynne? Perhaps, mistress, it would be well to hear the history from your own lips.
Mr. Wilson, the child.
Well, the child must know the mother's shame. It is for her soul's good.
Mr. Dimsdale, fear not for Pearl, for I do not. In all things, Mr. Wilson, I do try to obey God's laws and those who preach his word. And if you wish me to speak publicly of my sins and of my penance, I will do as you instruct me. I have fallen. I live among you as a leper lives. This scarlet letter is my leper's bell, that all may know of my approach. I hold the fruit of my sin by the hand, and daily pray that she will know God's truth and be not ashamed to be loved by me.
A truly repentant heart would wear a humbler mien.
May I pass now, Mr. Wilson? I carry handwork to Mistress Bellingham.
Carry thyself more fitly, Mistress Brem.
It's adequate.
I thank you, mistress.
Not worth what we agreed upon before the work began. But then...
I shall gladly take what you think just.
I thought you would. Oh. I have some gloves from England. Drab things. Embellish them for me. Oh, and Mistress Griggs requires some baby linen. It's clear you know your way with infants' clothes.
I thank you for the custom.
So, Hester, it seems you don't lack employment.
I have been fortunate.
Indeed. Your handwork is quite the fashion now. All over Boston, one may see embroidery done by the self-same hands that wrought the Scarlet Letter. Strangers from abroad observe my husband's scarf, and then the A upon your dress, and remark how alike they look. At table, it's a subject for much mirth.
Mistress.
In the hallway, you'll find some eggs and a crock of butter. That's payment enough, don't you think?
In this manner, Hester Prynne came to have a part to perform in the world. In all her intercourse with society, however, there was nothing that made her feel as if she belonged to it.
What evil thing is at hand?
It now and then appeared to Hester that the Scarlet Letter had endowed her with a new sense. She could not help believing that it gave her a sympathetic knowledge of the hidden sin in other hearts. As if the outward guise of purity was but a lie. Such loss of faith is ever one of the saddest results of sin.
I felt it move, as though in sympathy. Do sinners walk among us then unknown, because they wear no scarlet letter? Why then does God visit the fullness of his wrath upon me? If others walk the town with equal guilt and are not punished for it, he would not. Therefore none have sinned save I. And has my sin ingrained itself in you?
Fetch me, Mother, fetch me!
Pearl, where are you?
Here I am, Mother.
Why do you brave me at each turn? What demon possesses you?
Hey. 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 Hey.
What are you?
I am your little Pearl.
Are you my child in very truth?
Yes, I am, Mother. Play with me.
Pearl.
Mother and daughter stood together in the same circle of seclusion from human society, and in the nature of the child seemed to be perpetuated those unquiet elements that had distracted Hester Prynne before Pearl's birth. Day after day, Hester looked fearfully into the child's expanding nature, ever dreading to detect some dark and wild peculiarity that should correspond with the guiltiness to which she owed her being.
Child. Child, what are you? You are no child of mine. You are not my Pearl. Tell me what you are, and who sent you hither.
You tell me, Mother. You tell me.
Your heavenly Father sent you. And I admonish you ever to know so.
You did not send me. I have no heavenly Father.
Hush, you must not talk so. He sent us all into this world. He sent even me, your mother.
He did not send me.
And much more you. In God's name, Pearl, hush. If he did not, you strange and elfish child, whence did you come?
Tell me. Tell me, Mother. You must tell me.
But Hester Prynne could not resolve the query, being herself in a dismal labyrinth of doubt. She remembered the talk of the townspeople, who had given out that poor little Pearl was a demon offspring. They had a story about the Scarlet Letter. They averred that the symbol was not mere scarlet cloth tinged in an earthly dye pot, but was red hot with infernal fire, and could be seen glowing all alight whenever Hester Prynne walked abroad in the night time. And, we must needs say, it seared Hester's bosom so deeply that perhaps there was more truth in the rumor than our modern incredulity would be inclined to admit.
And now, scenes from the next episode of The Scarlet Letter.
Is there any evil in the city? Search it out.
You shall not take her. I will die first.
I, your pastor, whom you so reverence and trust, am utterly a pollution and a lie.
Who is that man? I hate him, Esther. Come.
The Scarlet Letter was made possible by grants from the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Exxon Corporation, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, and the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations.
Basically, my function has been to insert, where possible, those things that we know about the 17th century to complement Hawthorne's view of the 17th century and that of the 20th century designers. In other words, what this set represents is a combination of the real 17th century, the 19th century view of the 17th century, and the view of modern design people to accommodate the location, Fort Adams. There has been a lot of emphasis on historical accuracy where possible. Hawthorne was not an historian by any means, nor did he think of himself as one. So what we have is this complex mix of accuracy and obvious cliches, if you will. Bellingham's mansion is a cliche, and it figures very prominently in the story. The mansion itself symbolizes Bellingham, the governor, and symbolizes his relationship to the rest of the community, as does the parade where his wife is paraded through the town. Those things would never have happened in the real 17th century, especially in this wilderness situation. They may have happened in England. The meeting house is a very accurate restoration based on actually 2 surviving meeting houses today. The streets themselves, the muddiness, the burned stumps, the technology just didn't exist to clear out stumps. One doesn't clear out stumps to plant a field or to build a city. One builds around them, builds their fences around them, and that's why we've tried to show some of that. The reason we're including some of these cliches, if you will, or some of these 19th century views is because this is Hawthorne's story. And the story of the Scarlet Letter would not have happened in the real 17th century. It's as simple as that. It's a 19th century story. It's a romantic view of the 17th century, and therefore we've chosen to romanticize some of the architecture and some of the physical setting.
The Scarlet Letter is made possible by grants from the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Exxon Corporation, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, and the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations.
Is there any evil in the city? Search it out.
You shall not take her. I will die first.
I, your pastor, whom you so reverence and trust, am utterly a pollution and a lie.
Who is that man? I hate him, Esther. Come.
And now, part 2 of The Scarlet Letter.
One idle and rainy day, in an unfinished room in the Salem Custom House, I, Nathaniel Hawthorne, had the fortune to make a discovery of some little interest. found the letter. The Scarlet Letter of Hester Prynne.
Is there any evil in the city? Search it out. There is no good in it. Nothing that God will own. Is there any evil in the city? Search it out. Suppose that all the miseries and sorrows that ever befell all the wicked in earth and hell should meet together in one soul, as all the waters gathered in one sea. Suppose thou heardst the devils howling, and sawest hell gaping, and flames of everlasting burnings flashing before thine eyes. It is certain that it were better for thee to be cast into these torments than to commit the least sin against the Lord. Thou dost not think so now, but thou wilt find it so one day. Sinners are called the haters of the Lord, and he that hates would destroy the thing that he hates. The adulterer loathes the law that condemns uncleanness. Oh, it would be to the sinner's content if there were no God in the world to govern him, no law to curb him, no justice to punish, no truth to trouble him. Be it known to them and to you that you fly in the very face of the Almighty. You would destroy the Spirit of grace. You would hate the author of grace. You would hate God.
Spawned in sin, raised in sin.
The child is a peril to the mother's soul.
A demon offspring?
There are many who say so. A stumbling block in her mother's path.
It would be in the interest of the mother to take the child away.
But if, on the other hand, the child were capable of moral and religious growth?
Then Hester Prynne is unfit to have her.
Gentlemen, Hester Prynne may yet find true repentance. Let us leave her to the Scarlet Letter. It cannot fail to do its office. Yes. What is it? Ah!
Do you? Do you want them to take you away from me?
It would come unawares, like the stroke of sudden death. Always that peculiar smile and odd expression of the eyes. Hester fancied that she beheld there not her own miniature portrait, but another face. A face fiend-like, full of smiling malice, yet bearing the semblance of features that she'd known full well, though seldom with a smile, and never with malice in them.
They mean to take the child from you, Hester Prynne.
Who? Who would have my child?
No one wants her, mistress, but there are Christian families who'll take her.
Who would take away my Pearl?
There are many, mistress.
Many. What reason do they give? I have done my public penance. I wear the badge of my disgrace for all to see, and have done since my shame was spread before the world.
You will not name the father, mistress. So 'tis hinted the child is born of a demon.
Pearl, child, come to me.
Oh, come
quickly.
now, Hester, these sleeves. I need them some 5 days hence. You'll see to it, won't you?
I will not lose her.
Magistrates will decide that, won't they?
Go inside, child. I will not.
The sleeves?
You shall have them.
You are lonely, aren't you, Hester Prynne?
Mistress.
Lonely. Desires.
I miss nothing.
You say so, mistress? So be it.
If what Hester feared were true, Pearl could not be made amenable to rules. The warfare of the mother's spirit was perpetuated in the child. Full of concern, therefore, but so conscious of her own right that it seemed scarcely an unequal match between the public on the one side and a solitary woman backed by the sympathies of nature on the other, Hester Prynne went one day to Governor Bellingham's mansion.
Mother, look. The sun shines on the stones. Give me some sunshine, Mother.
You must gather your own sunshine, Pearl. I have none to give you. Is the worshipful Governor Bellingham within?
Yea, mistress, he is, but you may not see his worship now.
Nevertheless, I will enter.
Mother, look. I see you here.
Pearl, go look into the garden. There might be flowers there more beautiful than those we see in the woods.
I want a flower, Mother. Get me a red rose in the bush, Mother.
Hush, child. I cannot give you what's not
Is
mine.
that the rose that grows by the prison door? Is it, Mother?
What do you know of prisons?
Oh, there you are, Your Worship. That shan't trouble you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chillingworth. What's this? What have we here? I profess I haven't seen her like that since the days of old King James. In holiday time at court masques, there used to be a swarm of these small apparitions. We call them the children of the Lord of Misrule.
What little bird of splendid plumage may this be? Well, what art thou?
And what ails thy mother to dress thee in this strange fashion, eh?
Art thou a Christian child? Dost thou know thy catechism? Or art thou a naughty elf? Or fairy child like those we left behind in England?
I'm my mother's child, and my name is Pearl.
Pearl? Pearl. Oh, ruby, rather. Or coral? Huh? Coral, Your Worship?
Oh, red rose at the very least, judging by her hue.
Now, child,
What brings thee here? Where is that mother of thine? I see. We might have judged that such a child's mother must needs be a scarlet woman. She comes at a good time. Mistress, there has been much question concerning thee of late. The point has been weightily discussed whether we that are of authority do well to discharge our consciences by trusting thy daughter's immortal soul to the guidance of one who has stumbled and fallen among the pitfalls of this world. Well, speak thou, the child's own mother. Dost thou not think it would be better for thy child's welfare that she be taken out of thy charge and clad soberly and disciplined strictly and instructed in the truths of heaven and earth? What canst thou do for the child?
I can teach my little Pearl what I have learned from this.
Woman, that is thy badge of shame. It is because of this stain that we would transfer thy child to other hands.
This badge has taught me. It daily teaches me. It is teaching me at this moment lessons whereof my child will be wiser and better.
I pray you, good Master Wilson, examine this Pearl, since that is her name, and see whether she has such Christian nurture as befits a child of her age.
Come, come, child, stand before me. Pearl. Thou must pay heed to instruction, that so in due season thou mayest wear in thy bosom the pearl of great price. Canst thou tell me, child, who made thee? Well, child, speak.
Pearl, tell Mr. Wilson what you've learned of me. You remember the catechism?
Silence, woman. Let the answer come in the child's voice, not the mother's. Come now, child, tell who made thee.
I was not made at all.
What?
My mother plucked me from a rose bush.
The rose bush that grows in Governor Bellingham's garden.
No, the rose that grows by the prison door.
This is terrible. Here is a child who cannot tell who made her. Without question, she is equally in the dark as to her soul, its present depravity, and its future destiny. No, gentlemen, methinks we need inquire no further.
God gave me the child. He gave her to me in requital of all things else which you had taken from me.
God gave her to you, yet she will not say so. Wherefore?
To punish me. She is my happiness. She is my torture nonetheless. Pearl keeps me here in life. See you not she is the Scarlet Letter, only capable of being loved, and so endowed with a millionfold the power of retribution for my sin? You shall not take her. I will die first.
My poor woman, the child shall be well cared for. Far better than thou canst do it.
God gave her into my keeping. I will not give her up. Speak for me. You were my pastor and had charge of my soul and know me better than these men can. I will not lose the child. Speak for me. You know, for you have sympathies which these men lack. You know what is in my heart. And what are a mother's rights, and how much stronger they are when she has but her child and the Scarlet Letter. I will not lose the child. Look to it. Look to it.
There is truth in what she says. Truth in what Hester says. God gave her the child, and gave her to an instinctive knowledge of its nature, which no other mortal being can possess. Is there not a quality of awful sacredness in the relation between this mother and this child?
I pray you, Master Dimmesdale, make that plain.
If we deem it otherwise, do we not say that the Heavenly Father hath lightly recognized a deed of sin? Does God make no distinction between unhallowed lust and holy love? This child of its father's guilt and its mother's shame has come from the hand of God to work in many ways upon her heart.
It is well put.
This child was meant for a blessing, the one blessing of her life. Doubtless, as the mother herself has said, as a retribution too, a torture, a pang, a sting, an ever-occurring agony in the midst of a troubled joy. Has she not expressed this thought herself in the garb of the poor child? So forcibly reminding us of that red symbol which sears her bosom.
Well said again. And I feared the woman had no better thought than to make a mountebank of her child.
Not so. Not so. She recognizes, believe me, the solemn miracle which God hath wrought in the existence of this child. This boon was meant, above all things else, to keep the mother's soul alive, and to preserve her from the blacker depths of sin into which Satan might else have sought to plunge her. It is good for this poor sinful woman that she have an infant immortality, a being capable of eternal joy or sorrow, entrusted to her care, to be raised up by her to righteousness, to remind her at every moment of her fall, but yet to teach her that should she bring the child to heaven, the child will also bring its parent thither. Herein is the sinful mother happier than the sinful father. For Hester Prynne's sake, then, and no less for the poor child's sake, let us leave them as Providence has seen fit to place them.
There is weighty import in what my younger brother hath spoken. What say you, worshipful Mr. Bellingham? Hath he not pleaded well for the poor woman?
Indeed he hath. We shall leave matters as they now stand. So long, at least, as there shall be no further scandal, mistress. Furthermore, take heed that the child be put to due and stated examination in the catechism, at thy hands or at Mr. Dimsdale's. Moreover, at a proper season, see to it that she goes both to school and to meeting.
I shall see to it.
The little baggage hath witchcraft in her.
A strange child. It is easy to see the mother's part of her. Would it be beyond the philosopher's research, think ye, gentlemen, to analyze the child's nature, and in doing so, have a shrewd guess as to the father?
Better to leave the mystery as it stands, unless Providence choose to reveal it of its own accord. And so every good Christian man may show a father's kindness towards the poor unfortunate babe.
Amen.
So be it. Amen.
Amen.
It is averred that the governor's sister was waiting for Hester as she left. Not many years later, this weird old gentlewoman was executed as a witch.
Wait here, child.
Will you go with us tonight?
Go where?
To the forest. I well nigh promised the Prince of Darkness that the comely Hester Prynne would join us.
Make my excuses to him, so please you, Mistress Hibbins.
He often speaks of you.
I must tarry at home and keep watch over my little Pearl.
Bring the child, too.
I cannot.
My prince will be disappointed.
Had they taken her from me, I would gladly have gone into the forest with you and signed my name in his black book, and that with my own blood.
We shall have you there anon.
But here, if we suppose this interview between Mistress Hibbins and Hester Prynne to be authentic and not a parable, was already an illustration of the young minister's argument. Even thus early, the child had saved Hester from Satan's snare. The Reverend Arthur Dimmesdale had achieved a brilliant popularity in his sacred office. The people deemed the young clergyman a miracle of holiness. They fancied him the mouthpiece of heaven's message of wisdom and rebuke and love. In their eyes, the very ground on which he trod was sanctified. Should he live and labor for the ordinary term of life, he was destined to do great deeds for the now feeble New England church. The virgins of his church grew pale around him, victims of a passion so imbued with religious sentiment that they imagined it to be all religion. The aged members of his flock believed that he would go heavenward before them, and enjoined it upon their children that their old bones should be buried close to their young pastor's holy grave. And indeed, it was about this time that the health of Mr. Dimmesdale had evidently begun to fail.
How is it, young sir, that you did not eat? And that your hand did clutch your heart? The gesture first accompanied by a paleness and then a redness as though you were in pain. Are you not well?
You are a close observer.
Your voice as well.
My voice?
Aye. Although a fine instrument well suited to your calling, rich and full, I do detect a note of melancholy in it, as though, pardon me, no offense is meant, you prophesy your own decay.
But this is fancy.
Is it good, sir? Think. When did you last take your measure in the looking glass? Your clothing hangs about you.
I am perfectly well.
Forgive me, sir, but I am a physician, and have perhaps a keener eye for bodily ills, matching, as it were, your own discernment of spiritual sickness. I would prescribe for you.
I need no medicine.
How can you say so? Each successive Sabbath, your cheek is paler, your frame is thinner, your voice more tremulous than before. Are you weary of your labors? Do you wish to die?
If God wishes.
And if he wish otherwise? Now consider the sin of rejecting aid when Providence manifestly offers it.
Are you saying that Providence has sent the doctor hither? Did a clap of thunder transport you bodily through the air and set you at my door? Where were you, sir, before heaven propelled you to Boston?
You speak in jest. It bodes well for a cure.
Heaven requires no miraculous interposition to promote its purposes. It is desired by the deacons, as well as the elder ministers of Boston, that you avail yourself of the healing powers of this physician.
Then I must. But let there be no misunderstanding, Mr. Chillingworth. Were it God's will, I could be well content that my labors and my sins, and my sorrows and my pains should shortly end with me. And what is earthly of them be buried in my grave, and the spiritual go with me to my eternal state, rather than that you should put your skill to the proof in my behalf.
Yes. Yes, a young clergyman is apt to speak thus. Youthful men give up their hold of life so easily. Perhaps it's because they've put no roots into the soil. And saintly men who walk with God on earth would fain be off with him in heaven.
Nay, were I worthier to walk there, I could be better content to toil here.
Good men do ever interpret themselves too meanly.
Unknown to all but Hester Prynne, under the appellation of Roger Chillingworth was hidden another name. As her husband, he held the lock and key of her silence, and therefore chose not to be pilloried beside her on her pedestal of shame. So far as medicine had aught to do with it, the good town of Boston deemed Roger Chillingworth a brilliant acquisition. And, it must be said, there was a fascination for the young minister in the company of the old physician.
God and nature one.
In truth?
That is heresy.
Likewise, these same books state that heresy is but a word the fearful use when the windows to the intellect are thrown wide open. Truth is sought in the fresh, chill air of reason.
After a time, at a hint from Roger Chillingworth himself, the friends of Mr. Dimmesdale arranged that the two be lodged in the same house, so that every ebb and flow of the minister's life tide might pass under the eye of his anxious and attached physician.
You know what's best for him. The tapestries are from the Gobelin looms in Flanders. And where have you seen such a library?
Does he sleep well?
Mr. Dimsdale, he paces back and forth sometimes all night. I can hear him walking above my head. He doesn't sleep at all. His vigils go on for days. I've tried to tell him what's best for him, but I am only a woman, a poor widow.
Yes, this suits me. Better than I could have hoped.
All I could offer him was my motherly concern. But now you are here, Mr. Chillingworth, and you will look over him far better than I could.
It has often been said that the lawyer goes to jail who pleads upon his own behalf. And the boneyards are filled with foolish physicians who sought their own cure. Tell me, young sir, who preaches to the minister?
God speaks to him direct.
And should he sin?
God knows his guilt.
But man does not. It follows then that the minister's soul must be sorely burdened, for it shares its secrets only with God.
So Roger Chillingworth, the kind and friendly physician, strove to go deeper into his patient's bosom, probing everything with a cautious touch, like a treasure seeker in a dark cavern. Few secrets can escape an investigator who has opportunity and license to undertake such a quest, and skill to follow it up. A man burdened with a secret should especially avoid the intimacy of his physician.
Where, my kind doctor, did you gather these herbs with such a dark, flabby leaf?
In the graveyard. They are new to me. I found them growing from a grave that bore no tombstone, nor any other memorial to the dead man save these ugly weeds. They grew from his heart and typify, it may be, some hideous secret that was buried with him, that he would have done better to have confessed during his lifetime.
Perchance he earnestly desired it, but could not.
Why not? When all the powers of nature did call so for the confession of sin, that these black weeds sprung from a buried heart make manifest an unspoken crime.
That, good doctor, is but a fantasy of yours. No power save divine mercy can disclose the secrets that may be buried in a human heart. It must hold them until that last day when all things shall be revealed and the dark problem of life shall be made plain. Those hearts, holding such miserable secrets as you speak of, will on that last day yield them up, and not with reluctance, but with a joy unutterable.
Why not reveal them here? Why should not the guilty ones sooner avail themselves of such unutterable solace?
They mostly do. Many a poor soul has given its confidence to me, not only on the deathbed, but while strong in life and fair in reputation. Never after such an outpouring, what a relief I witnessed. How can it be otherwise? Why should a wretched man, guilty, we will say, of murder, prefer to keep the dead corpse buried in his own heart, rather than fling it forth at once and let the universe take care of it?
Yet there are men who do bury their secrets thus.
True. There are such men.
And with deliberation deny themselves of the joy of which you speak. Wherefore?
Might one suppose, perchance, that such a man, guilty as he may be, still retains a zeal for God's glory and man's welfare? He shrinks from displaying himself black and filthy in the view of men, for thenceforward no good can be achieved by him. Thus, to his own unutterable torment, he goes about amongst his fellow creatures looking as pure as new-fallen snow, while his heart is all spotted and speckled with iniquity.
Such men deceive themselves. They fear to take up the shame that rightfully belongs to them. Oh, their love for man, their zeal for God's service may or may not coexist in their hearts with their guilt. But if they truly seek to glorify God, let them not lift heavenward their unclean hands. Would you have me believe that a false show could be better, could be more for God's service or man's welfare than God's own truth? Trust me, such men deceive themselves. There is no law, no reverence for authority, no regard for human opinion, right or wrong, mixed up in that child's composition. What in heaven's name is she? Has she affections? Has she any discoverable principles of being?
None, save the freedom of a broken law. Whether capable of good, I know not.
Come away, or that old man in black will catch you. Look, he's got hold of the minister already. Come away, or he will catch you, Mother, but he can't catch me.
There goes a woman with none of that hidden sinfulness that you deem so grievous. Is Hester Prynne the less miserable, do you think, for the scarlet letter on her breast?
I do verily believe it. But nevertheless, I cannot answer for her. There was a look of pain on her face, which I gladly would have been spared the sight of. Still, it must needs be better for the sufferer to be free to show his pain than to have to cover it all up in his heart.
You inquired of me a little time gone as to my judgment touching on your health.
That I did. Speak frankly.
Well, freely then and plainly. Your disorder is a strange one. I darely look at you and see a man that I deem sore sick, yet not so sick but that an instructed physician might well hope to cure.
I thank you for that.
Yet I fear I am called upon to cure an evil but half of which has been laid open before me.
Surely it were child's play to call a physician and then hide the sore.
Say you then that I know all, albeit so. But again, he to whom the outward and physical evil is made known often knows but half the evil he is called upon to cure. A bodily evil may, after all, be but a symptom of some ailment in the spiritual part.
Well, then I need ask no further. You deal not, I take it, in medicine for the soul?
No, a sickness, a sore place, if we may call it so, in your spirit, will have its manifestation in your bodily frame. Would you have your physician cure your bodily evil? How can he unless you first lay open to him the wound and trouble in your soul?
Not to you. Not to an earthly physician. Who are you who dares thrust himself between a sufferer and his God?
You have done a wild thing ere now, pious Master Dimsdale, in the hot passion of your heart.
More than once, Mr. Dimsdale had gone into the pulpit with the purpose never to come down its steps until he had spoken out the truth. More than once he had drawn in the long, deep, and tremulous breath which, when sent forth again, would come burdened with a black secret of his soul. More than once, nay, more than 100 times, he had actually spoken.
I, whom you behold in the black garments of the priesthood, I who ascend the sacred desk, and turning my pale face heavenward, take upon myself to hold communion in your behalf. I who have laid the hand of baptism upon your children. I who have breathed the parting prayer over your dying friends. I, your pastor, whom you so reverence and trust, am utterly a pollution and a lie.
The people heard it all, and did but reverence him the more. He had striven to put the cheat upon himself by making the avowal of a guilty conscience, but had gained only one other sin, and a self-acknowledged shame without the momentary relief of being self-deceived. He had spoken the very truth and transformed it into the veriest falsehood. And yet, by the constitution of his nature, he loved the truth and loathed the lie, as few men ever did. Therefore, above all things else, he loathed his miserable self.
They should put the brand of a hot iron on Hester Prynne's swallow. Magistrates are too merciful. Time to their shame.
Climate for the iron nerve.
In this vain show of expiation, Mr. Dimsdale was overcome with a great horror of mind, as if the universe were gazing at a scarlet token on his naked breast, right over his heart.
It is done. Good evening to you, Venerable Father Wilson. Come up and pass a pleasant hour with me.
Mr. Dimsdale doubted whether he should be able to descend the steps of the scaffold. Morning would break and find him there. The neighborhood would begin to rouse itself. And whom, to their amazement and horror, would they discern upon the scaffold, with the red eastern light upon his brow? Whom but the Reverend Arthur Dimsdale, half frozen to death, overwhelmed with shame, and standing where Hester Prynne had stood.
Hester Prynne? Pearl? Is it you?
Yes. It is Hester Prynne.
Whence come you? What brought you here?
I have been watching at Governor Winthrop's deathbed and have taken his measure for a robe. Now I'm going home.
Come up hither, Hester. You and Pearl. You have both been here before, but I was not with you then. Come up hither once again, and we shall stand all three together.
Minister,
What would you say, child?
will you stand here with Mother and me tomorrow noontide?
Not then, Pearl. But at another time.
And what other time?
At the great judgment day. There and then before the judgment seat. Your mother, you, and I shall stand all three together. But the daylight of the world will not see our meeting. is that man? I hate him, Hester. My soul shivers at him. I have a nameless horror of the man.
Minister, I can tell you who he is.
Quickly, child, as low as you can whisper. You mock me now.
You are not bold. You are not true. You would not promise to take my hand and Mother's hand tomorrow noontide.
Worthy sir, pious Master Dimsdale, can this be you? Well, well, indeed. For we men of study, with our heads always in our books, need to be straightly looked after. We dream in our waking moments, and we walk in our sleep. Come, come, my dear sir, and my good friend. Let me lead you home. Come, sir, I beseech you, else you'll be poorly able to do your Sabbath duty tomorrow. Oh, these books, how they trouble the brain. You should study less, my dear sir, and take more pastime, else these night whimsies will grow on you. Come.
Was found this morning on a scaffold, where evildoers are set up to public shame. Satan dropped it there, I take it, intending a scurrilous jest against your reverence. But indeed he was blind and foolish, as he ever and always is. A pure hand needs no glove to cover it.
Thank you, my good friend. It does seem to be mine indeed.
And since Satan saw fit to steal it, your reverence must needs handle him without gloves henceforward. But did your reverence hear of the portent that was seen last night? A great red letter in the sky, the letter A, which we interpret to stand for angel. For as our good Governor Winthrop was made an angel this past night, it was doubtless held fit that there should be some notice thereof.
No, I had not heard of it.
With the knowledge of a train of circumstances hidden from all others, one could readily infer that, besides the legitimate action of his own conscience, a terrible machinery had been brought to bear and was still operating on Mr. Dimsdale's well-being and repose. Knowing what this poor fallen man had once been, Hester saw, or seemed to see, that there lay a responsibility upon her in reference to the clergyman. The links that united her to the rest of humankind, links of flowers or silk or gold or whatever the material, had all been broken. Here was the iron link of mutual crime, which neither he nor she could break.
And now, scenes from the next episode of The Scarlet Letter.
Your clutch is on his life. You cause him to die daily a living death, and still he knows you not.
This is our fate, Hester Prynne. Let the black flower blossom as it may.
I thought joy was dead in me. Hester, this is already the better life.
The past is gone. Let us not look back.
The Scarlet Letter was made possible by grants from the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Exxon Corporation, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, and the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations.
Okay, here we go.
The makeup process is part of my preparation for the day's work. I mean, there's a certain amount of revving up, you know, coming in, just being tired at 5 o'clock. We usually start at 5 or 5:30 in the morning. And then sitting here and using that time instead of just kind of passing out to kind of get yourself going. And also by watching gradually, you know, as Bob works on it, I get older and older and fiercer, and you know, and the eyes start to come out, and and all that stuff starts to happen. And you begin to feel more like Chillingworth and less like Conway. Chillingworth is usually played, this is from Rick, as a kind of old crone type, you know, guy, which I think there's an element of in what I'm doing, but we don't begin him that way. I mean, he doesn't start off being, you know, Igor, you know, kind of thing, and he begins as a man, a fairly vital character, and then degenerates, which I don't think has been the way they've usually played him old, decrepit by the time he first comes in, and you wonder how Hester ever got hooked up with him. We'd like to, I think, add that element of that maybe if things had been different and circumstances hadn't happened, that they might have had some sort of a happy life together.